Bernie Sanders vs. Pharma CEO, the price that stopped the hearing. February 8, 2024. Washington, D.C. The hearing room was standing room only. An overflow room had been prepared in an adjacent building. Photographers lined the front of the chamber. Television cameras occupied every available position along the walls. For a Senate Health Committee session on prescription drug pricing, a topic that had generated dozens of similar hearings over the years, the energy in that room was unusual. Bernie Sanders had spent months making sure it would be. The hearing was titled, "Why Does the United States Pay, by Far, the Highest Prices in the World for Prescription Drugs?" 3 CEOs sat at the witness table. Robert Davis of Merck, Joaquin Duato of Johnson & Johnson, Chris Boerner of Bristol Myers Squibb. 3 of the largest pharmaceutical companies in the world. 2 of them had initially declined Sanders' invitation to appear. Sanders, as chair of the Senate Health, Education, Labor and Pensions Committee, had scheduled a committee vote on subpoenas. Both executives agreed to testify voluntarily the week before that vote was scheduled to occur. They arrived prepared. Briefed on expected questions. Familiar with the standard responses the industry had developed over years of public scrutiny, what they had not fully accounted for were the foam boards. Before the first question was asked, Sanders' staff had positioned a series of large foam boards behind the chairman's seat, oversized visual displays, each showing a specific drug in a specific set of numbers. Not complicated charts. Simple comparisons. The price of a medication in the United States. The price of the same medication in another country. The numbers differed significantly. Sanders opened the hearing with a question that was, technically, very simple. He asked why American patients paid, in some cases, many times more for the same drug than patients in Canada, Japan, or Germany. He asked it directly. He asked it while the foam boards were visible to every camera in the room. The CEOs answered with the industry's established framework. High prices in the United States fund the research and development that produces life-saving medications. The American market effectively helps sustain pharmaceutical innovation globally. Price structures in other countries reflect different regulatory environments. Sanders had heard this argument many times. He had a question that engaged it on specific terms. He asked Robert Davis of Merck whether Merck currently sold its cancer drug Keytruda in Japan. Davis confirmed that it did. Sanders asked whether Merck made a profit selling Keytruda in Japan. Davis confirmed that it did. Sanders asked Davis to address the difference between what Merck charged for Keytruda in the United States and what it charged in Japan. The American price was substantially higher. Sanders asked Davis directly, would he commit, today, to lowering the price of Keytruda in the United States to the same price Merck charged in Japan, where the company acknowledged it operated profitably. Davis said he was not able to make that commitment. He said pricing systems in different countries involved different structures that made direct comparisons complex. He said that the U.S. price reflected the full value of the medication, including investment required to bring it to market. He gave a complete answer. A practiced answer. An answer that addressed the framework without engaging the specific commitment Sanders had requested. Sanders turned to Chris Boerner of Bristol Myers Squibb. He asked Boerner whether BMS would commit to lowering the list price of its blood thinner Eliquis in the United States to the same price the company charged in Canada. Boerner said he was not able to make that commitment. He cited the same framework. Different pricing systems. Different market structures. The importance of sustaining investment in future innovation. Sanders looked at the foam boards behind him. Then he looked back at the 2 CEOs. He noted that both companies had just confirmed they sold their medications in other countries at lower prices and operated profitably in those markets. He said the question of whether the research had been funded was therefore not the central issue on the table. The research had been done. The drugs existed. Both companies were currently selling them in Japan and Canada at prices substantially lower than what American patients paid, and doing so at a profit. He asked both CEOs to address, specifically, what the additional cost in the American price represented, if not research already completed, manufacturing already occurring, or distribution already in place. The CEOs returned to the framework. The complexity of the pricing system. The role of pharmacy benefit managers. The difference between list price and net price. Sanders said he wanted to present publicly available financial data that he stated that according to those records, Merck generated more revenue from the United States market alone on Keytruda than from the rest of the world combined. He let that sit for a moment. Then he said the same was reflected in publicly available data for Eliquis at Bristol Myers Squibb. He asked both CEOs to confirm or dispute those figures, neither disputed them. The room absorbed that, not loudly. The gallery was quiet in a specific way, the way a room goes quiet when a specific, documented claim is placed on the public record without dispute. Sanders moved to Johnson & Johnson. He asked Joaquin Duato about Stelara, the arthritis medication, presenting the U.S. price alongside the price in Germany. He asked Duato whether J&J would commit to a price reduction. Duato said he was not able to make that commitment. By the time all three CEOs had addressed Sanders' questions, he summarized what the hearing had placed on the official record. 3 major pharmaceutical companies. 3 widely used medications. 3 countries where those same medications were sold at substantially lower prices by the same companies, at a confirmed profit. And 3 CEOs who, when asked directly whether they would sell those medications at comparable prices in the United States, indicated they were not in a position to make that commitment. He said he thought the American people should have that information. In the months following the hearing, negotiations under the Inflation Reduction Act continued with several pharmaceutical companies, including those represented at the hearing. Updated prices for selected medications were scheduled to take effect in 2026. The hearing transcript is part of the permanent public record of the United States Senate Help Committee. The foam boards from that session have since been referenced in multiple pieces of subsequent legislation and public commentary, and the exchange Sanders constructed that day, conducted entirely with publicly available figures and direct questions, placed something specific on the official record: the same drug, the same company, a lower price in another market, a confirmed profit in that market, and a response, offered 3 times by 3 different executives, that they were not in a position to offer American patients the same price. Sanders closed his folder, the CEOs straightened their notes. And the numbers on those foam boards, their simple comparisons, their documented arithmetic, remained part of the permanent Senate record long after the session had ended.